Man, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. My name is Mike Hickerson. I'm honored to be the lead pastor of Mission Church. It doesn't matter. It's Jim. He's around sometimes.
Story of my life.
Well, poor Jim.
For me, yes.
I know you win.
I love it.
No, Jim is the executive pastor of Mission. It's just for the privilege of our lives to be a part of this team, a part of this journey, a part of this church. We believe that God is who he says he is and will do all that he's promised to do, that he sent his son Jesus into the mess of humanity, for the mess in us and for the mess in all of us to rescue and save us. And that's not based on our greatness. It's based on God's desire and God's perfectness and God's heart to be able to bring all of his sons and daughters back into relationship with him. And we have the right to become much-loved sons and daughters. And that means that there's hope for every single one of us. And so that's what we cling to together. That's what we've been clinging to as a church. I don't know if you know this, but we are not perfect people. At all. I know, that's a shocker.
It's weird when you say it for someone else.
I know. Well, I know you.
Oh,
so
that's
this is true.
Right.
So I know you. So one of the things that we do every week when we're just kind of getting started is that, and if you're new to Mission, just give us a little bit of grace and just be able to say like, hey, turn to people next to you and go like, hey, you're not perfect. So just turn to the people next to you and go, hey, you're not perfect.
You're not perfect.
You're not perfect. Oh. All right. This is how it works. If you're in the live, if you're online, what's up? So just kind of do that. You're not perfect. It's kind of mean in the chat room, but you say mean stuff in the chat room all the time, so we're fine. Just kidding. But it's helpful. It's weird to do that like later tonight when you're fighting with someone, because that's weird. But it's really good to do when we're reminding ourselves who we are as a church. Like, not like the building, but the people that make up the church. That there are no perfect people. There's a really good God. And it's just been the privilege of our lives to be a part of this church that God rescues and saves. And there's hope for every single one of us, every single one of our friends, every single one of our family, every single one of our coworkers, our teammates, us as individuals. There's hope not just to be rescued, but to be transformed and be the best versions of us, that God helps not just rescue us, but transform us into who he's created us to be. So I just want to take a little bit of a risk. If you're online or in the patio or in the lobby, you're going to have to do this as well. So if you or your family member or a friend, so this is your answer, not answering for you. No one's it's not scandal, so you'll be all right. If you, a family member or a friend, and if you need to put friend in air quotes, that's fine too. So if you have grown in your faith or maybe recaptured your faith because it was stagnant for a while as a result of being a part of Mission, will you just throw your hand up or just kind of say like, or the heart in the chat or in the lobby or on the patio? Yeah. You, a family member or a friend, has done that. Grown or recaptured your faith. Yes. All right, how about this? If you, a family member or a friend, have become a follower of Jesus over the last decade as a result of being a part of Mission, just throw you, your family member or friend, have done that. That's amazing. That's so cool. How about this? If you've understood the Bible better, or maybe even just began to read it every now and then, over the last decade, as a result, you, family member or a friend, has done that over the last decade. Maybe throw your hand up in that. If you have, or a family member or a friend have watched somebody, or maybe you personally, or maybe you know of someone in your circle that has overcome addiction or is fighting addiction proactively as a result of maybe even attending a meeting at this facility as a part of Mission, will you throw your hand up in the air? That's crazy. That's crazy. If you've had a student in Mission Students, or you, a family member or a friend, have had a student in Mission Students over the last decade, throw your hand up. It's crazy what they do. Yeah, I got those. Some are out now.
Yeah, crazy.
It's crazy. If you, a family member or friend, have had a kid in Mission Kids over the last decade, then throw your hand up. So if you've checked somebody in, and you're probably lying because there's a lot of kids checked in right now, so that's great. You're just tired of raising your hand. I'm just saying, it's been amazing what God has done in and through the people that have make up Mission over the last decade. It's been crazy. And what we wanted to do today is maybe take a look back. This is our whole point of today as we start off this series of just getting started, is we want to take a look back. Because there's these times and these moments, and that it's good to look back and look at God's faithfulness, to look at what he's brought us out of, to look at what he's brought us through, to look at the lessons that we've learned on our life of faith as individuals and as a church, to go like, okay, like he's been faithful yesterday, he's going to be faithful today, and he's going to be faithful tomorrow. So let's look back at some of those like high water marks where God has been faithful. Let's look at where we are, and then let's talk through where we're going. We're going to use the book of Acts. Acts is like, if you go to the biographies of Jesus in the New Testament, which is like the story of Jesus and the story of the church. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the biographies of Jesus, and then it goes Acts, which is like the beginning of the church. So like if you're going to hang out in the book of John, read all about Jesus. He's the hero. He's the author and perfecter perfecter of our faith, and then gonna go into like, what is the church? What were these people that were just following Jesus? Like, what was up with them, and how did all this get started? And that's the book of Acts, and it's incredible, it's profound, it's inspirational. But we're gonna hang out in Acts 2 for a little while, and we were gonna say it's just getting started. So let me just walk through where we're headed over the next 4 weeks. So just getting started today. Just bear with me for a second, because today is called We're Not Drunk. So I know that's a shocker to you probably as on a Sunday morning, but we're not drunk. We'll walk through where that comes from and give some context in the Bible in Acts 2. But we're going to walk through We're Not Drunk. We're going to walk through People Need Jesus next week. We're going to walk through this is how we do it, and absolutely we may even sing some songs about that. So let's do that. We're going to walk through the best kind of math on October 10th. And then we'll kind of say, okay, we're just getting started in that. So let me walk through Acts 2, 6 through 8, and kind of the context of Jesus has kind of given this commission to the people that were following him. They didn't know quite how to do it. They said, go into all the world, teaching people to obey everything I've commanded you, and baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and I will be with you to the very end of the age. This is commission that he's given his followers. He said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to go after it. I want you to go tell people about me, about the story, about the good news that God is offering through me, that you can be restored and much loved sons and daughters. And then they all go, like Jesus goes up into heaven, and they're all like, now what do we do? It's like, okay, now I think he was serious about it. Those were his last words. So what do we do as these ragtag group of followers of Jesus? How do we get about it now that we know about it? So Acts 2, 6 through 8, it goes like this. So when they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each had heard in their own language, being spoken. So let me tell you what's going on, set a little context. So they're in Jerusalem. So they're hanging out, and there's this big festival going on. So the Jewish people love to celebrate and love to party. That's why we as a church, we love to celebrate and we love to party, because we want to remember the faithfulness of God. That's why they always celebrate. That's always why they always have feasts. That's why they always have festivals. If you're reading the Bible and you're like, man, they like to just celebrate and eat and hang out late for days on end. Yes, that was the people of God in the beginning. So there we go. So everybody is in Jerusalem hanging out, and they're like, the events with Jesus had just unfolded. Like, they're trying to figure out all that's going on. So all these people are here, and then all of a sudden this supernatural event takes place where the people that were following Jesus began to tell and proclaim the story of Jesus, like his life, his teaching, his death, his resurrection, in language that they understood from the places that they were, even though they were hanging out in Jerusalem. And it kind of wigged everyone out. This is like the beginning of the church. And so, utterly amazed, they asked, aren't these who are speaking Galileans? So basically what that means, Galileans are like country people that have a slang. Like, I grew up in the South, so I can say this. I know slang when I hear it. And so they know that they're not from this area. They're like, wait a minute, you don't live in my area, you don't talk in my area, you don't know the isms of my area, but because I know, I can tell where you're from, I can tell where you're like if you think about it, if you're from the South and you're going to Boston, you know that there's a difference. You know that guy's not from here, right? You know, if somebody says Ventura, they're probably not from here, right? So there's this way that they were talking. They're like, you're saying in my language and my dialect, but you're not from here, right? And it kind of wigs them out. And they're hearing in our native language. And then it goes on like this in verse 12. It says, amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, what does this mean? And then it keeps on going. Some, however, made fun of them and said they've had too much wine. So this is basically, we get made fun of all the time. This is where it comes from, we're not drunk. That this idea, like there was something amazing going on, and they knew that something was up, and they're like, are they drunk? Like, this is not normal. This is crazy. And so some of our video guys around here, our video team around here, had some fun and realized that if you slow down some of the way that we talk by about half, we sound a little inebriated.
It didn't take a lot of work.
It didn't take a lot of work.
For them to find
so
these.
yeah. So one of the values of mission is we take the mission seriously ourselves, not so much. So let me show you Jim. Check this out.
But when I say a party, it's going to be like a party, like bounce houses, obstacle courses. If you were here last weekend, I challenged any fifth grader in the long jump, and I stand by my commitment that I'll smoke you. In the long jump, I've got medals and ribbons to defend from my elementary field days. So I'm ready. I've been training, stretching all week. I'm ready. So
That's
It's
good.
true. I mean, it might have helped had I been drunk.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I lost to a fifth grader.
That's amazing. And then Jen Oaks, the Oxnard campus pastor. Check this out.
This is what I do a lot in my life. Stick this thing on. And I teach the rest of the time with this one. No, but this thing for me is this life preserver.
So clear. That's great.
That's hilarious. That was amazing. Oh, wait, you don't have one? Is that what you're saying? Because Jen's sleepy drunk. I wonder what kind of drunk you are.
Yeah,
I think we should let's check this out.
So I think you just turn to people next to you or turn to maybe someone around you and kindly say, with kind eyes, you're not perfect. So just turn around and say, you're not perfect. It's helpful. They're going to look back at you and say, well, you're not perfect either. We kind of call a truce for an hour on Sundays to admit that we are not perfect people, right? If you are perfect and you maybe think you're perfect, you may be more messed up than anyone I've ever met in my entire life.
Yep. You're never going to be able to do the opening the same way again.
Never. Yeah. We're not drunk. That's making fun. So let me just jump back in. That was, again, taking the mission seriously ourselves, not so much. But they were like, okay, something supernatural is going on with this group of people because they're just ordinary people like Galileans. They're not from our place. Like, what's up? Something's up. And so it keeps on going like this. Peter, one of the followers of Jesus, he stood up with the 11 and raised his voice and addressed the crowd. Fellow Jews and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. This is like the beginning of the church. This is what's going on. These people are not drunk as you suppose. It's only 9 a.m. That's the only excuse that he gives. We'll just leave that there. We'll leave that there. So, no. So then Peter goes on to say, like, he gives like his first sermon. Like, he's like just telling the story. What a sermon is. He's just telling the story of who Jesus was and what he taught and how he lived and the sacrifice that he made and the fact that he rose again. And so we're going to spend some time over the next few weeks in this one chapter in the book of Acts because it's the beginning of the church and what we're supposed to be about. And he ends this like little section right here. And this is like maybe the point of what we've kind of all clung to together. He says, and everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. I mean, that's the promise and that's the hope that we have no matter where you are, no matter where you've been or what's been going on in your life, no matter how far you run away from God, no matter your doubts or criticism or cynicism or critique of Jesus and the Bible and God and the church. I get all of that. I understand that. It's a journey of faith to go on, and it's something that you don't just arrive to. It's something that God begins to grow in you and transform you from the inside out. So you never fully arrive because we're always a work in progress. And so patio, I get that. I promise you this is a safe place to say, because we want to hold up Jesus and say there is hope for every single one of us, and everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. That's the promise and the hope that we have. And it's been crazy to look back over the life of mission over the last decade and think back to all that God has done and how he's and how he's won people's hearts, how he's transformed lives, of how he's extended hope. So it's been like looking back a little bit. So I just want to show you like the original plant team that was at Mission. It's just like this is us back in the day. So this is like we moved here and Hayden was like 9 and 6 and 3 and game on, and Thatcher wasn't even born yet. So this is like, and there's so much that looking back, I want to tell all of these people lessons that you're going to need to learn and how God is going to show off and how he's going to transform and redeem lives. I mean, there's so much to look back and think through in my mind over this last little bit here. So I asked Jim, can you come and just, let's walk through it together. Let's be a part of this and kind of maybe tell the story. And we're not telling the story to make Mission the hero. We're telling this story to be able to look back and go like, God's faithful and true, and he holds his promises. So when you walk us back a little bit?
Yeah, to that end, like I thought maybe just walking through the history of Mission a little differently. Like instead of like just pointing to the stats and numbers and all the cool things, I actually want to pull the curtain back on all of the ways that we were drunk behind the scenes. Of like, if you look back at the story in the moment, it's easy to look back afterwards when the results are in and things are done and place credit or assign credit to things. But in the moment, man, there were some real like hang by a thread moments in the story of Mission, and the most amazing thing as I go through this journey is that the people at the table in those moments expanded. The table got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the first one for me was actually 11 years ago, a year before Mission started. The 6 of us were sitting around your in-laws table. We had resigned our jobs. We were done on staff at that church. We were in the process of trying to raise support to move out here. We needed to raise $1 million to fund the first 3 years of Mission. and we were killing it. We had raised $9,000. So we were
So close.
I don't know if you know that, but that's troublesome. In fact, we call it the moleskin moment. I actually have my legitimate, it's a moleskin that we sat at the table and we like wrote out, we're like, well, how much are your bills? How much are your bills and how much are your bills? And we realized we're not going to make it through the end of the year. And it forced us in a good way to go like, this is all dependent on God. So let's just get about praying and fasting. And like, we don't know if God's going to show up, but he's clearly called us to go. And so faithful obedience, that is like the scorecard for us, kind of, I think, started in that moment. They go, we want to be faithful to what God has called us to. And then literally days after that, we had our first lead donor commit to give $100,000 to the church plant. And again, just the way we tell a story, none of us knew him.
Right.
It wasn't even an ask that we made.
Right.
Someone else made the ask on behalf of us. And so just crazy to think, like that kind of faithfulness.
And I think the part of success is faithful obedience. I just want to pull that out for us. Like, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you are, like, no matter, like, if you're, like, kind of keeping God at a distance, success for life is just faithful obedience to him. That's it. It's not up and to the right. It's not more zeros. It's faithful obedience to what he's called you to. Yeah.
The second one would have been a year into mission. We actually met at Balboa Middle School. Anybody here in those days when we were at Balboa Middle School?
Yeah.
Very
For
few
like
of
5
us.
weeks.
It was 5 weeks
Yeah.
at Balboa Middle School because the theater, we were meeting in the theater, it was open, it closed to move to River Park. And we legitimately panicked. We had no idea where we could meet as a church. We were running about 150 to 200 people at the time. Schools in Ventura won't let you meet in them long term. Real estate's real easy to find around here. So we were like, I don't know what we're going to do.
We're such good leaders.
Exactly. We're going to the middle school for 5 weeks. We stood up in front of you, if you were there, and said, we think we're going back to the theater next Sunday. Show up there, and if we can't get in, we'll tell you where to go. We didn't have a lot of contingency plans. Our only contingency plan was we think we can sweet talk them into one more week.
At the school.
At the school. We had nothing for week 2.
Yep.
So we can tell the story, but we forget, man, in those moments, there were 150 to 200 of us now at the table. Just praying. Like, God, you're doing something here, and we trust you, and so we're just going to show up. And we got the keys, and we moved into the building. It was crazy to know that we could now have a 24/7 location, but there was real moments where that was really uncertain and probably didn't even look like it was going to happen. And we probably looked drunk, not having a backup plan and not doing any of that stuff, but like we were just going to keep moving ahead. The third one for me would have been a generosity initiative that we did in the theater, probably back in 2015 or so, called Making Space. Any of you guys here doing Making Space? Yeah. All right, a few more of you. Making Space was a generosity initiative. Yeah.
I was here.
Yeah, you were here?
Yep.
That's good. Generosity initiative that we did. Now that we were in the theater, we were growing and we were running out of space, and so we wanted to like do some things in the theater that would allow us to grow as a church. So we started this generosity initiative to raise about $350,000 to $400,000 in 6 months as a small church, and we kicked it off, and then the week after we kicked it off, the theater called us and said, hey, we're not going to be able to keep you in there long term. We're like, but you just said we could stay. I don't know if anybody's watched The Office, but this was like a snip, snap moment. It takes a toll kind of moment for us, because that's really what it was. You can stay, you can't stay. Oh, actually, you can stay. Oh, you know what? You can't stay. That happened 3 times over 6 months, and we just were like, well, we'll just keep going with the generosity initiative to make space and literally not know where we're going to be making space. And then at the end of that, you can stay. And again, just kidding, you can't stay. And so it was an amazing moment, again, where we really didn't know how this was going to play out, but we felt like we wanted to be faithful in the moment with what God had made clear in that moment. Mm-hmm. The next one for me would have been Advanced Commitment Night at this building. Anybody in this room here at Advanced Commitment Night here in this building? It was amazing. Hundreds of families in this room with just concrete floors, going first with generosity to say, we're going to watch God do incredible things through this building. It's a tool. But again, we didn't know that we couldn't stay at the theater. We had no idea where we were going to go. We've told the story. We bought a building that wasn't for sale as a church of about 600 without the money to pay for it or remodel it. So again, just really good planning.
Strong leadership.
The other way we refer to these are like chips in, like all chips in moments. We're like, I don't know, like it's like we don't want to stop being faithful to what God's put in our hand and where he's called us to go, even just because we can't see how it's going to work out. And this time, there were literally hundreds of families that were participating and around the table praying for God to show up. And again, it's a huge project for a church our size, which leads me to the next one, which had been grand opening in this building. How many of you were here grand opening for this facility? Like, it was incredible, an amazing weekend. Thousands of people now at Mission. Incredible journey to watch all of those things unfold. If you were here 2 months later, then you know we stood up in front of the church and said, the good news is we came in on budget for all of our construction. The bad news is we're about $600,000 behind on giving, and we had $2,000 left in the bank. And we weren't joking. And we just were transparent. It was another moment to say, if you turn in commitment cards and you didn't make good on that, off the hook. We don't ever want shame to be attached to giving. Right. But we believe, and we made a joke of it, that God always provides for the vision that he calls you to. The good news is that he always provides. The bad news is the money's in your bank accounts. And so the good news is we get to partake by kind of being generous as individuals and kind of coming together. And in the next 90 days as a church, Mission, the people of Mission, gave $1.1 million over a 90-day period. Just unbelievable. It's the biggest stretch in 90-day giving that we've ever had as a church. Our budget would have been $600,000 in giving, so almost double. And it was incredible to watch. But again, these are the things that behind the scenes would have been you probably should have a better plan. Or maybe you should have seen that coming, and we didn't. We just tried to stay faithful with what God was doing and where he was calling us to go. And I got to tell you, I think we're at another one of those moments. This, in fact, may be the ultimate hold my beer moment in the life of Mission, because we are at the point today where we are going to try to raise the funds to launch 2 campuses in the middle of a pandemic. Really good strategy. Solid. Good timing to do it.
Solid
but
strategy.
It's what God has put in our hand, and we feel like it is faithful obedience to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that leads us to Mission now. And so, as you're thinking through the arc of the church, is this beginning in Acts 2, this ragtag group of people that just knew who Jesus was, have been rescued and restored by him, have been sent on mission with him, commissioned by him to go and reach their world as best that they could, teaching them the story, the life, the story, the teachings, following Jesus, the death and resurrection of Jesus as the hope that we cling to. That's the mission that was given in Acts 2, and it's the mission that still holds true today. And so sometimes we can get all wrapped up in the buildings and the tools and stuff like that, but the church has never been the building. In fact, we've talked a lot about how the church for Mission has left the building, right? And so if you remember back, our church is scattered all throughout our county. And so I just want to maybe even take a look back of this is a little bit, and it's not literally every household doesn't fit on here, but just assume that this is a ton of households in and around our county. This is a lot of people and this is the church, not this thing that we're sitting in. This is a tool. And so I just want to remind us as the church that, we are the kind of people around here. These are souls and people and us. And our lives personally, individually, my life is better because of Jesus, because of the rescue that he offers, because of the salvation that he offers, because of the foundation that he offers, because of the hope and forgiveness and purpose that he offers. My life is better. And so I've been sent personally, we all, as individuals in the church, we have been sent personally on mission, wherever we live, work, and play. We're on mission for that Great Commission to help people find and follow Jesus. And so I think then when a group of people organizationally, as our church, little c, capital E church together, imperfect people linking arms together to accomplish that mission that he's given us individually, it can get powerful. And so when we start thinking, and what we've kind of even thought through is our county is big. There's about a million people in our county, give or take, right? And so I don't know if you realize that, but 1 million people won't fit in this building. Shocker. But that's never been the goal, is that they would come to us. That's never been the mission of us as individuals in the church. The mission has always been that people that are following Jesus would be lights and go to where people need hope and help and the rescue that only Jesus offers, right? And so that's been the conviction, the growing conviction even pre-COVID with us, is that we want to be the kind of church that lifts up Jesus and lives out this fact that there is hope for every single one of us. We want to do that individually, in our neighborhoods, on our teams, in our offices, on our social media, right? Be nice, all right? We want to do that. We want to lift out hope that Jesus offers in that individually, but we also want to be the kind of church that is organized in a way that we can do this together. And so that's what we've been after. And so it's been the conviction of our lives over this last season to say, you know what, we want to go to Oxnard. We want to hold out the hope that only Jesus can provide in Oxnard. And so we've been on the journey of wanting to launch a campus in Oxnard. So that's coming. And then as we're kind of talking about this county vision, all of a sudden a building was given to us in Ojai, which is crazy. We'll tell that story later. And we got this, and then we got a campus pastor basically dropped into our laps for the Ojai campus that'll be coming in 2022. So it really feels like we're following where God is leading. And we know that he provides when the vision is, and he knows that he's compelling us individually, and he's compelling us organizationally to be about it. So this is the ask. This is what we're going after over this just getting started. On our 10-year birthday, we're not done. We're not like crossing the line of the marathon going like, whew, I'm going to need a minute. You know, it's not that kind of moment on our 10 years. We think we're just getting started on the commission that God has called us to go after. And so we want to go after our county. Yeah, absolutely. We want to go after our county together. So here's what we're going to do. Here's the ask. Here's the over the next that I want everyone to be considering. The ask is that 100% of us, everyone who can hear my voice, everyone who's watching online, everyone who's going to watch this on the app or on a replay or however you're watching this, that 100% of us, that our mission, the people of mission, would begin to go on a journey of like, okay, what would this mean for me to live out my faith, to share my faith, to be proactively generous in this just getting started initiative, right? So that's the goal. So you don't even know exactly what I'm asking yet, but I'm asking for 100% of us to be involved. So there you go. So if you're like breathing and sucking air, congratulations, you're in. You're in the just getting started thing. The second ask that we're going to do over the next 2 years is that we're going to try together to kind of throw in and be proactively generous around $1.5 million above our normal giving so that we can be able to help this on-ramp for these two campuses get started and have an on-ramp to sustainability that will take probably 2 to 3 years. So that's the main thing. If you want to hear, like, as we're just getting started together, this is what we're going to process. This is what we're going after. We believe that there are friends and neighbors and coworkers and people that, if you're like, you know, a Ventura sold out person, that's amazing. There may be people in Oxnard that you won't meet till the other side of eternity, but we're going to proactively be generous around this to say that they are living beneath their means if they're not following and realizing that they are much loved sons and daughters of Jesus, and there's hope for every single person in our county. So 100% involvement. So if you can hear me, that's you. If you're like, is he talking to me? Yes, yes. Just go ahead and say yes. The second is that all of us together would proactively be generous and sacrificially be generous around $1.5 million over the next 2 years so that we can give an on-ramp to these two campuses. So can you maybe unpack that for those of us that are maybe think a little bit like that or want to know some details?
Let me ask you to help me for a second. On the end of the rows are baskets. If you could pass the baskets down the aisle and everybody just take one of the handouts that are in them, that would be super helpful. And so even if this is your first time here, just go ahead and grab one. There's 2 documents, 2 pieces of paper in there. One of them is we call the one-pager. It'll be super helpful, a way for you to kind of like just read this on your own at home and kind of know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And the other one's kind of a tool to use around our generosity. And I'm going to explain both of them. But I want to make sure that one thing is really, really clear. So like make sure, don't look at that yet, like eyes up here. I don't want you to, here's what happens. Here's what happens. We just talked about all of the ways that God is faithful. We get something like this put in our hands, and then all of a sudden this becomes the focus. This is not the vision. Right. The vision is living on mission in our neighborhoods, putting roots down deep enough that just as we're going to hear in Acts 2, people come to Jesus because of the way that we are living our lives in their presence. That's the vision. And we know that we have to have roots in these communities to reach the people in these communities. We can't not live there and just come in and do it. That's the vision. This is the strategy and tactics. That's it. So don't confuse the two. So just for, real quick, what these 2 pieces of paper like help to serve, this trifold document will help answer some of the common questions around like what's the difference between a church plant and a campus. There's a really good explanation of like why this is different than Santa Barbara and SLO where we planted churches, and a couple of other questions you may have right in here. If these don't answer your questions, Connection Point, our team will always be there. You can email info@Mission Ventura. We want clarity, so if you have questions or confused, we got time to kind of unpack all of that. The second piece of paper is this commitment card, and this commitment card is a tool. It's just meant to be a tool. On the back of it is a giving chart that I made up. Like, so don't put too much weight on this. I literally just made it up. Like, this is one of the ways that we could get to $1.5 million above and beyond our normal giving would be gifts in this range. The whole purpose of this is for it to be a prayer tool. That's it. So if you're going to pray about what it looks like to be generous above and beyond what you're currently giving, this is a way to just do the math and go like, I want to pray about maybe taking a step or going towards another number. It's just a tool. So don't get hung up there. If there's like cynicism towards the church, like this is not, like I don't want you to get hung up here. I think that we are never let off the hook for generosity. Jesus makes that really clear. If you've got wounds with the church, give somewhere else. Like we're not trying to manipulate you. Like we don't need your money. We get to participate in something that God is doing in this season that hundreds of us have over the last 10 years and watch God do amazing things. And we've been able to participate because of our generosity and to have a front row seat to what God's doing. And we want to invite all of you in on that. So, like I said, we're going to have availability afterwards. You can email info@Mission Ventura. We got a couple of key dates, kind of like the next couple of weeks, what this is going to look like. We're going to be asking some of us to go first if we're ready to. But at the end of the day, we want 100% of us praying through what would it look like for us to participate in this vision.
Because that's where God does his work, when we open our hands and be surrendered to it and say, okay, God, what would you want to do in me? And how can I be about this? And what are you calling me to individually? Not what are you calling them to, or what are you calling... It's easy for me to go like, I know what you should do. Like I've been praying and God told me what you should do, Jim. No, what we want to do is we want to pray, what is God individually calling us to in this area? And then what happens is when a bunch of individuals as the church kind of come together, it's powerful. And what God does in and through that is cool. So let me just a couple key dates and we'll kind of go from there. Advanced Commitment Night, those are, I think, leaders go first sacrificially and proactively, generosity-wise. And so this is one of those areas, if you're like, man, I want you to be praying through it. I want you to be thinking about it. And 9/28, it'll be here at Mission. And that's just an Advanced Commitment Night. And this is the boundaries of Advanced Commitment Night. If you are ready to commit in advance, then you can be there. All right? So that's what that is. So it's very complicated. Commitment Sunday. So in 4 weeks, it'll be October 10th. So that'll be Commitment Sunday where we'll kind of have a moment, all of us together, and we'll kind of bring that before God and have like a just getting started moment together. It'll be pretty powerful. And then, I don't know if you've heard about this, but Mission Oxnard is going to launch on October 24th, 2 weeks later at Pacifica High School. So that's going to be awesome. And then coming in 2022, the Mission Ojai campus will launch in 2022, and there'll be more as we kind of get closer to those details and that. I just want to pull all of this back together just to remind ourselves. Not what our life is like before Mission. I don't mean that. I mean like what it's like before we knew who Jesus was and before he was the rescuer of our lives and what he's done in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives, on our teams, in our families, in our homes, in where we work, live, and play, what he's made us to be and how he's impacted us and how we've been able to impact others, hopefully, right? I want us to remember that and go, you know what? I want everyone in our county to experience that rescue, to experience that hope, to experience that forgiveness, to experience that purpose, to experience that community of like, man, I wouldn't have what I have had it not been for Jesus and his idea of the church, right? And so we want to be about that life and about extending the hope that only Jesus offers together. And this is one of the ways that we do that, by just getting started. Why don't you pray with me? God, you are good and you are great. And God, it just seems so insurmountable sometimes what we can do as individuals. Like, seems like we're just, trying to just make a difference with our one and only life, and it feels like our impact is so small sometimes. God, it seems insurmountable of like that you would even love us as individuals, not just as a collective group of messed up kids, right? But that you would love us as individuals. And when we understand that love that you have for us personally and the rescue that it offers us personally, and then how that could be impacted of us organizationally and corporately and together with a group of people that have been rescued personally, God, it is amazing. So God, I pray that you would help us live in Acts 2 a little bit in our Bible. Help us to remember what it was like, the mission that you gave all of us. Remember what it was like when those first followers of you were trying to live together and how they lived and what they did and how you worked and how you moved. And we want to be about that. We want to live that way, and we want to extend the hope that Jesus changed us, and he has the ability to change everyone. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
My name is Jody Hickerson, and I'm on staff around this place. And I got to be part of the team that helped start Mission 10 years ago today. And that is just so crazy. And one of the greatest gifts of my life is to be a part of this church. And I'm so thankful to God, because this has been God's work from the beginning. Stories of hope that he has been penning for thousands of years. Rescue, redemption, and now here among us. Too many to mention. It's beyond comprehension. So let it be our intention to throw all our attention, all praise, all honor, all glory to him for all that he's done and will do again. Because he is still working. The same God who breathed life into Adam still breathes life into us, and I believe we'll see him do it again. The same God who set the Israelites free still sets us free, and I believe we'll see him do it again. The same God who provided food in the desert still provides for us, and I believe we'll see him do it again. The same God who slayed a giant still slays our giants, and I believe we'll see him do it again. He is still working. The same God who showed up in the flesh, Jesus, our Savior, and moved towards our mess with grace and forgiveness, mercy and rest for anyone weary, lost, or oppressed, is still moving. He's alive. He'll never be thwarted. He's still breaking chains no matter how hard, and he mends up our wounds and binds the brokenhearted. He welcomes the outcast that life has discarded, and for all of his faithful, unfailing love he's imparted, we're thankful. But know that he's just getting started.